Welcome, y'all. If you are into the esoterics and you're using a form of divination, you may be getting messages in your readings that you need to bring attention to the public. Now, yesterday I helped a client, and it was a moment of growth for me because it helped me keep perspective of the situation. Now, the context of the message that came up was how we as adults are influencing the way children are going about building romantic interpersonal connections. Now, what if I told you that a lot of adults have unhealed sexual trauma, and they're focusing on romantic relationships instead of actually healing those relationships? What if I told you that unhealed sexual trauma, without self initiated healthy manners of healing that sexual trauma, um, is the children are watching the way we adults maneuver if we are living like that? Now, I am actively healing from generational trauma of sexual assault, and I am a conscious parent who's a single parent, due to not advocating for abusive domestic relationships, as well as anything in which a child's innocence can be harmed. And so, in this reading, we're going to talk about how we can protect our children, how we need to be more accountable if we're dating, even if we're in a healthy relationship. We need to be mindful that children are watching us, and there's a lot of unhealed adults with sexual trauma seeking relationships as escapism. And this can show up in a lot of ways in which our children are being denied access to having a childhood because they could be seeing a parent prioritizing a relationship so much to the point that everything else is off balance. You know, financially, um, emotional health, mental health, physical health. Um, so right now, as adults, we're being asked to be responsible. In the reading, there wasn't anything um, talking about sexual trauma, but we have to take into consideration logically if a bunch of unhealed adults who have sexual trauma that they're not actively trying to healthily heal in a manner that is not imposing itself upon someone. If they have children, they're setting an example of some very toxic dating habits for their children. This is why we have generations of sexual trauma occurring. And sexual trauma isn't always rape. Sometimes it can literally just be sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can wear and tear someone down over long periods of time, and sexual predators know this and they utilize this information. And if we as parents are not being conscious as to how we romantically date, we can basically set our children up to be victimized by sexual predators. So this reading is so that we can be held accountable. If you're watching this reading, you're being held accountable. I'm being held accountable delivering this message. After I gave that reading yesterday and I saw how it triggered something in the client, I realized, okay, this is making me uncomfortable. Why is this making me uncomfortable? I can't just sit here on this information by myself. This is what came up in the reading. This isn't about the client. This is about the context that a lot of us are repeating what we saw our family members do. We saw our moms and dads do it. We saw our cousins, our aunts and uncles do it. We saw our grandparents do it. And while, some people may have said, well, this is what our family does. We've been here for a long time. If our children's childhood is being taken away from them due to us setting a toxic example of dating, we as adults need to be held accountable. There's no way we can sit here and act as if we don't have responsibilities. As adults, it's natural for us to have desires today. It's natural for us to want to experience, you know, adult like things. But we are in a time period where children are literally watching us to see how it is that we maneuver through very difficult situations um, when we have limited resources. Now, for adults who have not yet healed from sexual trauma, a lot of them were financially exploited. So, this is where, as adults, they may be repeating cycles of using sex to get things to have their physical needs met. And this is where, if children are involved in the picture, this can endanger children and open them up to pedophiles, sexual predators. And being that I am a survivor of being molested by a narcissistic woman, I have to be open about this because I'm gonna keep it a buck with you guys. I have two young daughters. Now, if I don't talk about what I experienced in my childhood, I can subconsciously recreate that, in conscious parenting. And I don't have my children at this point in time because I'm healing from severe narcissistic abuse with men, as well as, having that past of understanding the lower depths that female narcissists will go to. So I'm open about these topics because we need to make sure our children are safe. If you are a parent, if you not a parent, if you have a broken heart and you think you want to have little children, here's how you know you'll be a good parent. Whether or not you have a broken heart, you will still be responsible and you will still healthily find a way to communicate exactly what it is you're experiencing, and you will find healthy ways to create a solution to keep moving forward and trusting that something bigger than you has your back. Because right now, if as adults, if we keep normalizing serial dating among individuals who have unhealed sexual trauma, we're basically setting our children up to consistently be sexually traumatized. And as a conscious parent who is into the occult and is using the divination of tarot, I'm holding myself accountable. There's a reading I have, hold all spiritual leaders accountable. And this is me holding myself accountable because if I had just sat there on those emotions of what in the fuck is going on, how do I put this information out when I'm being told, go to the cards. Whatever comes up in these cards, it needs to come up. Because right now we're living in a time where as adults, we have to understand that the decisions that we make is impacting our children. And because a lot of adults want relationships, and that's normal and that's healthy, a lot of adults who have unhealed sexual trauma are dating like children who wish they had got justice, but they didn't get the justice. So instead of them knowing how to properly get justice, they're taking their anger out in their relationships. And if children are involved, children are sitting here watching this vicious cycle of seeing adults attack each other and then say they love each other and then, do adult things. Not saying that the children are seeing the adult things, but the children are picking up on the energy that, oh, as long as the adult things are taking place, all the immaturity that is taking place in the relationships can be condoned. And I'm a grown ass woman who has been having immature young men and men of all ages come at me and approach me the wrong way. I'm a grown woman who is healing from sexual trauma, and I'm not sitting here, I'm not going to be entertaining immature people who don't understand that this is a time for them to take into consideration how they're dating and what type of effect it's leaving on people. Not only is immature dating negatively impacting children, it's impacting the safety of our external environment. Because as a mature woman who yesterday, it was Pride Day, and there was females out there trying to get away with sexual harassment. Now, if I had let females get away with sexual harassment with me, then that meant sexual predators who are males would have tried the same shit. Then, when that didn't happen, I had some immature young men sit next to me and negatively try to impact the way my business was being viewed. So I show the example of independence. Now, this is a time where we have to become independent so that we can recognize what healthy dating looks like. Because if you have any intention of being a parent, or if you are a parent, you have to hold yourself accountable right now. If you date immaturely, you are making it so your children have less safety. There's a lot of young men out here thinking they're in love, and they think that they want to have unprotected sex with women that they feel good with in the moment. But they're so immature that they are not able to protect their children. So let's get into the cards, because all this stuff is coming up for a reason. It needs to come out. We need to make sure our children are safe. There's a lot of selfish adults out here who is trying to escape into another relationship, and it's immature, and they have unhealed sexual trauma, and they're traumatizing their partners. They're traumatizing prospective partners. They're traumatizing their children. Now, realize that sexual trauma is not always molestation or rape. Sometimes sexual trauma can be witnessing an immature adult literally trying to get a relationship, like a child having a tantrum. Now, children are allowed to have tantrums. But when you have adults who have children who are having tantrums too, and they're taking this out in their romantic relationships, what the fuck is going on? Let's find out with the cards, okay? Because I can't sit here and just let this get, just sit here and just... Right now, something is going on. We have the Eight of Swords in reverse. We have the Page of Swords and the King of Swords, okay? So this is where... And the Sun card here. Let's talk about it. A lot of good, healthy fathers who are learning how to healthily date, whose parental rights are negatively being impacted, they're starting to get their freedom from toxic feminine energy. Toxic feminine energy that abused and exploited them mentally. And this is where, if they, if healthy father figures are being denied access to building a natural, healthy relationship with their children, they're trying to figure out how to be able to be a part of their children's lives while navigating character defamation. This is what this Eight of Swords is talking about. This is concerning ACS cases where men who have left women who are immature with dating, but they're well versed in adult activity due to being hypersexualized, due to unhealed sexual trauma that they're not even trying to heal. And this is where children were developed. This is where a lot of men are having regrets, but they're learning to move past those regrets because they have to basically be present for the children. This is where, if there's toxic feminine energy that does not actually have maternal skill sets, they're being cited for, okay, this is how this awareness of different parenting styles is coming through. This is where men who have been negatively had their characters defamated by toxic feminine energy, who they're co-parenting with, they're just saying with this Eight of Swords, I don't give a fuck what you have to say or do right now. I have to do what's best for me. This is where with the Page of Swords here, if you're a divine masculine or a healthy masculine, and you're trying to figure out the safety of your child, realize you have every right to inquire with this Page of Swords about your child's safety. But this is where integrity is going to come through, because a lot of toxic feminines have gotten away with filing false ACS reports. And this is where that channel message that I started out with. A lot of females who have filed false ACS reports, or who have put healthy men on child support due to unrequited love interest. Let's just say the tables are about to be turning, as they're going to be thoroughly investigated. So where it's going to show up where these men have their parental rights taken from them. Now, remember, I was talking about how you can have some people trying to escape with toxic relationships, and their children are watching them dating, and they could be endangering their children by inviting pedophiles and sexual predators into the homes. This is where healthy father figures are learning that they have to try to help their children to protect their children from pedophiles and sexual predators. If they have fathered children with immature, toxic, feminine energy that is just head in the clouds. I want a relationship. And there's nothing wrong with desiring a relationship, as I stated. But if your foundation is not healthy, if you're not actively healing sexual trauma in ways that's not going to re traumatize another generationally, this is where a lot of court cases with the ACS involved, where false ACS claims or family court is involved. They're gonna be basically putting their heads into the books to see, is this information that we're using, is it up to date for what's actually taking place. Now, I'm a mindful parent, a female who has experienced harassment and having uh my parental rights taken from me, with the law used against me, with toxic masculine that acted from a place of toxic feminine energy. What also this is telling me is that any toxic masculine energy who is copying this trend of toxic feminine energy, trying to negatively impact someone's life by having children with them, this started in the home. So this is why I don't take it personal for what personally happened to me with my case, but I'm starting to see that toxic feminine energy has opened up a door for toxic masculine energy to do the same. So for feminines out there, healthy feminines who are fighting for their parental rights, it's going to be easier to get your children back if you had a toxic masculine energy due to you as toxic feminine energies have done, where they filed false ACS claims, where they have not been putting their child's welfare and overall safety first, and they've been showing signs of being toxic and selfish to the point where they're endangering their children. Well, toxic masculine got comfortable doing it because toxic feminine energy did it. Well, if you have a case where you have had your parental rights negatively impacted and you are the healthy, conscious parent, if you are a feminine, expect justice to occur after it gets sorted out how toxic feminine energy is abusing and exploiting the justice system to basically keep people close to them that no longer desire them romantically, and they could be taking this anger out on children. So if there's children who have experienced abuse due to a toxic parent not wanting to accept that a relationship is over due to the level of toxicity that exists in it, realize that justice is coming. Let's get another message as well, because this needs to be put out. Like this is it's sad that I'm delivering messages like this. It's sad that I have to put this shit out here, but the fact is, as a tarot reader, I used to try to do those marshmallow readings, but when I have stuff coming out in these readings clearly telling me what's going on, we need to get to the bottom of what's going on. Now we have the five of who, child? We have the five of swords and the hermit together. Okay, we also have the seven of swords supporting the two of swords in reverse with the judgment. And we also have the high priestess. Now, let's start with the high priestess here. This is saying that when it comes to conscious parenting, you need to trust your intuition. If you're going to learn esoteric wisdom, let the motivation be to be a conscious parent, not so that you can manifest money or the love of a lifetime or so that you can manifest vacations. You need, if you go, there's a lot of people in the esoteric community who have children. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's what you do with that wisdom. And right now, a lot of people need to use esoteric wisdom to protect their children, especially if they're co-parenting with toxic individuals who just don't want to healthily deal with the growing pains of releasing sexual trauma. Now, let's keep it a buck here. When you're releasing sexual trauma from the body, and let's keep it a buck, the shit is painful. It feels like your organs are having some type of, it's like malfunctioning. Okay? When you're actively releasing sexual trauma from stored up from years and years of oppressed emotion, that shit hurts. It can show up as disease. So when you're actively, being triggered by it and you're releasing it, the shit hurts. Mentally, you feel agitated. Emotionally, you feel combative. So when you're dealing with people who don't understand that because they're refusing to heal their own sexual trauma, if you're actively healing your own, you're not going to want to get into a relationship with someone who's not actively healing their own sexual trauma. This is basically saying and this is what's showing up. You have toxic people trying to trap healthy people who are actively healing sexual trauma with children. And this is where a domestic abuse can occur. And this is where a lot of children are learning toxic habits of dating and basically showing how people are living in their households. And the toxic people are trying to act like, nah, that's not what we do here. I don't know where my child saw that from. I don't know who set that example for my child. Children trust their parental figures much more. So if there's a toxic parent who went above and beyond to create distress in a parental connection where they're co-parenting with someone who no longer fancies them romantically, the child is more than likely showing signs of those dating toxic habits. Now, this is where, as conscious parents, we need to have patience with our children as they're navigating, trying to figure out what is healthy and what is toxic. So this is where esoteric knowledge can come in, where you can simply use Reiki. Reiki is spelled Reiki, and that's a Japanese form of healing. You can play Reiki to put protection over your children, because as a mindful, conscious parent, you're not always going to be able to protect your children when it comes to, dealing with bullying. This is where this Five of Swords is coming up with the Hermit. If children are witnessing parental figures who are experiencing domestic abuse, they go to school and they feel that they can bully people with this Five of Swords. They feel that they can bully people who don't like to be around rowdy people. And this is also where childhood bullying is coming in. Come on, let's talk about it. If children get used to bullying children who just simply want peace and quiet with the Hermit card, because in their own home, they don't know how to express mommy and daddy are toxic, and I don't know what to do. And if I try to speak to mommy and daddy about the toxicity, they're going to normalize the toxicity. But this is where childhood bullying comes in. Now, if childhood bullying isn't nipped in the bud, and I was bullied for 30 plus years and I'm 32, this is where rape can come in. This is where you can have these childhood bullies turn into the very same people who like to, target people who want nothing to do with toxic people. This is where these sweet, innocent people, children who watch their families experience domestic abuse. If no one tells them that what they're doing is bullying, they don't grow up to reach their full potential. These cute children who are bullying children can basically become the next door, just like They can basically become the terrors that they saw in their families. And this is what a lot of conscious fathers are starting to realize, that as the people that some of the women that they had children with are too toxic to function. Now, being that I'm a mindful parent, I'm not leaving out toxic fathers here. Toxic fathers emulate toxic mothers. So as a mom, I'm holding every woman accountable. If you're watching this video, realize that if you are tolerating domestic abuse, if you're tolerating abuse of any kind, your child might be involved in bullying. If this is not nipped in the bud, because what I've picked up from my years of abuse and what I've been noticing, children who bully other children, they target children who like peace, because they're trying to figure out, how do you have peace and I don't have peace? So as parents and moms, we need to be mindful. If we're sitting there and accepting and allowing abuse in any form or fashion, our children, if they don't know how to healthily verbally express abuse is taking place in my house, and a lot of this occurs because most parents don't want to be known for being abusive parents in the house. This is where their children grow up and create isolated events of if this isn't nipped in the bud, children can grow up and create isolated events where they're bullying people, and this can turn into sexual trauma. The Five of Swords also relates to rape, and the Hermit relates to a sort of fetishism. So this is where a lot of children who have been seeing their parents get their asses beat have been desiring peace, but they don't know how to get peace because the parents aren't willing to accept. We're too toxic to function. Or you may have a parent that's in and out of toxic relationships. And this is where they don't see the innocence in the children anymore because the example that they're setting is too toxic. So this is where these sweet, innocent children can grow up to have fetishisms against healthy people. And this is where I'm a healthy person and I'm a survivor of rape. And I get sexually harassed almost, I can't even explain the amount of sexual harassment I've had to learn how to navigate wisely, due to have been surrounded by understanding that a lot of adults have this unhealed trauma from their childhood of witnessing domestic abuse, and the domestic abuse is showing up in the way they court people. Now, because a lot of conscious fathers are starting to realize that some of the women that they've had children with are repeating these cycles because they don't like how they feel in a relationship, and they're just saying, I can get away with this because I'm a female. Well, when females set examples to young boys that, oh, if domestic abuse is happening, you know, mama gonna fight back all the time and stay with the same person. No, this is where young men are growing up and coming out here and mistreating women. And as a healthy woman, I'm not gonna sit here and allow myself to be abused. As a conscious parent, I'm not gonna create the example that it's okay, baby. They bullying me again. We'll be nice to them. This is how rape happens. And what happens is when a lot of rape occurs in isolated events, the people that didn't have healthy childhoods have to learn to reparent themselves. A lot of these people have gone to the extent to act like, oh, I'm healthy. And they don't even talk about what happened. And this is how re-traumatization can occur if they have children or if they have relationships. So we're at a time right now where if you're interested in learning esoteric knowledge, you need to learn esoteric knowledge so that your children will not be conned. With the Seven of Swords in reverse and the Two of Swords in reverse, you can learn some You, like I stated, you can do some Reiki, Reiki, to make sure your children is protected from emotional manipulation, to make sure your children have clarity. Because as conscious parents, you won't be able to be here out here with your children when they go to school and they're having to deal with children who don't have a safe space to talk about the abuse that's happening in their homes. And a lot of people don't want to talk about the abuse, the sexual abuse that's taking place in their homes, y'all. So you have these children getting used to all this abuse, trying to figure out how do I go out here in the real world and act like everything's okay? Because my parents are showing me don't fake, don't act like what's happening is not happening. And then my parents are acting like something else when they're outside, and I'm having to come home and deal with abuse. If you're going to learn esoteric knowledge, use it to protect your children. Because bullying in childhood that is not dealt with, and a lot of bullying occurs, if it does occur, because children don't feel safe to healthily express that domestic abuse is taking place in the homes. If pedophilia is taking place in the homes, you have some parents they've been conditioned to think that their abusers are so powerful. But your abuser can't be that powerful if they're trying to change the script up on you when you go outside. So, and this is where a lot of females have to take accountability. If you have children and you're basically letting a pedophile or a sexual predator get away with creating an unsafe environment for your children, and if the children are going out bullying people to express the anger that they don't exactly know how to put into words, I'm holding y'all accountable. I'm holding myself accountable. It's too many children that understand about sexual trauma. And it starts with how we as parents date. Now, sexual predators don't use common sense. So that explains why they think they can keep getting away with sexual harassment. Women sexually harass people all the time. This is why sexual predators who are men, they copy these female sexual predators. Even female sexual predators can have children. My mother was the sexual predator. So I'm bringing y'all awareness to this shit because I have 2 little girls. And I refuse for my children to associate me with what my mom did to me, exactly what her mother did to her. So I'll do the same. Ain't no fucking way. If you watch this video, it's time for you to raise the fucking bar. You better raise the bar on dating. If that means you got to go some time by yourself, you better do it. Because our children are watching us. How many times do we have to sit here and learn it, when our children are developing? We as a mom, and I carried my children for 9 months plus. When our children are developing, we want to protect our children. When our children come out the womb, we want to protect them. But also we understand that we're not just parents, we still are individuals, but responsibility calls. And when responsibility calls, we have to learn prioritization. And a lot of people are prioritizing dating due to loneliness, due to not wanting to heal their own sexual trauma, that they could be re-traumatizing their children by simply allowing toxic energies to come into their home on a consistent basis. So children may be seeing sexual predators. And this is where conscious parents who have been separated from their children are starting to see, where is my justice? Who's going to protect my children if my children are with immature individuals who don't respect the innocence of a child? Well, something tells me after you watch this video, you're going to start becoming much more aware of how to protect your children. All this information that I just gave you guys, y'all better protect y'all children. I'm going to tell y'all another thing. The children who were targeted for sex trafficking were the ones who had parents who were, I want a relationship. I know I have to be responsible, but I want a relationship. I brought you into this world. I can take you out. So I'm going to do what I want. And when we're out in public, I'm going to make it look as if I'm doing everything I need to do. But when these children's needs are not being met, and when these unhealthy people are targeting the financial foundation of the healthy parents who are simply trying to provide for their children, justice, where you at? Where is justice? Because I'm going to keep it a buck. As a conscious parent, seeing how conscious fathers and conscious mothers are having to deal with bullshit just to be in their children's lives. Because we're learning from being with toxic people. Toxic people don't care about children. They want to see what they can get from children. I had a mom come up to me and try to scam me with her child. Now, this type of atmosphere attracts predators, sexual predators. Now, she had a son, so I stayed graceful. Now, if you got young boys seeing their own mothers trying to emotionally manipulate people, you can't be surprised if our young brothers out here is out here manipulating people. But when you know better, you do better. So if you know of a young brother or a young sister out here repeating emotional manipulation that they learned from a toxic parent, you set them on the path straight, because this is going to hold them accountable. They can't play like they don't know no more. If they choose to continue being like their toxic parents, well, we have to accept that they're choosing their path. But because we're now aware of what's going on in our children's lives, and a lot of our children are learning from us by the way we're dating, I'm going to hold all y'all accountable as I'm holding myself accountable. Y'all have a good day now.